People leave comments all the time. They ask questions on all of my videos, and I can't always reply to every single one. But what I can do is pick some of the most popular questions and some of the most intriguing or interesting questions that pop up on various videos. So in this video, I'm covering comments that were placed on videos from the week of November 19th, 2018. So I'm going to go through, and there's a lot of questions, and the particular videos that I posted up that week were ones that yielded questions that were a little bit more miscellaneous. So I did a video on cravings, I did a video that was a little bit more vlog style grocery shopping. So some of the questions that came in were a little bit somewhat irrelevant to the video, but still good questions. So either way, I'm gonna go through the normal process and answer these questions. So usually my videos are surrounding the world of keto, surrounding fasting, cravings, fat loss, nutrition in general. So let's go ahead and let's break it down. If you haven't already, please make sure you hit that subscribe button. Also hit that little bell button so you can turn on notifications and know whenever I do these Q&A type videos. All right, so the first one that I want to do comes from the video, How Cravings Work, Carbs, Fats, and Everything in Between. This video is about how we end up having hormonal responses that make us crave certain things. How it's not just a process of wanting more food or needing more food, it's literally a hormonal response that can be dictated from so many different directions in our life. So if you haven't checked out that video, definitely make sure you check it out after this video. All right, so the first question comes from Vyahendra Shah. It says, does body fat percentage affect the ability to put on muscle? More fat percentage equals slower muscle gain. That's a really good question. One thing is for certain, lean body mass directly has an impact because obviously your metabolism is a little bit faster and it's easier to activate mTOR and easier to build more muscle. More body fat would allow you to have what's called more aromatization, more estrogen production, which can kill off testosterone. So you have more estrogen, it turns into a vicious cycle, which ends up taking all your extra testosterone, converting it to estrogen so that you're not able to build muscle properly. So in short, the higher the body fat, yeah, it is a little bit harder to build muscle if you're not in a truly anabolic muscle building stage. Azim says, can you take creatine while you're fasted? Creatine monohydrate works totally fine while you're fasted. In fact, you're going to absorb it very well at that point in time, so you're totally fine. But remember that it takes a long time for you to absorb creatine. So why bother taking it in a fasting period? It's not like it hits you instantaneously. It takes days to build up and actually have an effect in your system. So you might as well just take it during your eating window, to be completely honest. Bill Carson says, will the white monster break a fast? It's kind of funny. By white monster, I mean, you mean like the Monster Zeros. Like, technically, it won't break a fast, but I would not recommend it. There's so much garbage in that. I would recommend going for something a little bit cleaner. Go for like matcha green tea in a high concentrated amount. Like literally, you can take like 4 or 5 ounces of water and what would normally be like 3 servings of matcha, consolidate it, and you're gonna feel like you're on cloud 9 and have a dang good workout too, because you have different catechins. So there's like epigallocatechin 3-gallate, which is EGCG, the main catechin, but there's different peaks and valleys of different catechins that actually trigger vasodilation effects and give you a good pump as well. All right, Eric Becker says, Thomas, I've been following the keto diet with intermittent fasting for about a month and a half, but I have a long upcoming Christmas holiday and will mostly be with family and friends. Thus, it will be impossible to stay in ketosis, drinking, dinners, and all that. Should I still try to restrict carbs and stick to a high-fat diet, or will it not really have an effect if I'm not in ketosis, and rather pick up where I left off after the holiday? Well, you've been doing keto diet for a while, so you were probably somewhat fat adapted, but you've only been doing it for a month and a half, so I don't think that you're that fat adapted enough to be able to benefit from just reducing carbs and staying in like a higher fat stage. So in my honest opinion, I would say practice some intermittent fasting, but don't really worry about the keto side of things. You don't want to just be bouncing yourself in and out of keto when you're not truly, genuinely fat adapted. And I mean like been doing keto for 3, 6, 8, 10 months, okay? So if you've been doing keto for a longer period of time, you're fat adapted, you can get away with kind of bouncing in and out of keto because your body's gonna be receptive to those ketones and get back in ketosis faster. But in your case, I would just do a little bit more intermittent fasting, play with it that way. Robert Stevens says, is it possible to have a cheat meal or a cheat day on a keto diet? Yeah, it definitely is. In fact, I usually recommend it, but here's what I do recommend that you do instead of just having a normal cheat day. Make it totally random. Don't ever plan it, okay? The reason is because you do not ever want to start associating food as a reward for yourself. It messes with your head. So if you were to say, Saturday I'm gonna have a cheat meal, and then you keep looking forward to Saturday, Saturday you just binge. Well, what you've done is you've created an external stimulus, an external reward with food. And that's defeating the entire purpose of a healthy lifestyle in the first place. So what I do is I just kind of wake up one day and be like, nah, today's the day. I'm gonna eat. I'm gonna have a little bit more fun. And it never really a big game plan to it because you do mess with your head a little bit. Tracy Nichols says, Hi, Thomas, a couple of questions. One, do we need to eat more fat, or is that we have more body fat regarding the leptin? Or two, if I exercise more, will I like it more, create a dopamine response? Okay, question one, eating more fat isn't necessarily gonna have a leptin response. It's having more body fat and different kind of craving response. So that doesn't really make too much of a difference there. If you exercise more, will you like it more? If you create a positive habit loop out of it and you see an actual reward from it, then sure, you will create a habit loop and you'll like it more. Captain Fabulous says, I really want to start doing intermittent fasting and keto, and I know you have the videos on here but do we have any tips on how to mentally prepare for it? I'm really struggling health-wise, and I want to make this lifestyle change, but I don't know how to prepare myself. Should this be an immediate, hardcore change, or should I try and slowly integrate? I'm a big fan of making it black and white. If you try to slowly integrate, you're going to find every single reason not to do it. Just jump in with both feet. Don't look back, just do it, honestly. And don't try to find a reason not to do it. Like, it's the holidays, I'll wait till after the holidays. Just do it. It's honestly, it's that easy, and especially with intermittent fasting. If you do want to dip your toe in the water, start with intermittent fasting and then progress to keto. Nicole says, regarding autophagy, is it an all or nothing process? If I'm fasting for 24 hours and accidentally eat a few peanuts or put a tablespoon of cream in my coffee, does autophagy just stop, or should I break my fast and start again next time if my goal is autophagy? Now, that's a good question. I don't really know, and I don't know if scientists really know, but I would argue that most of it's going to stop, and it's going to take a while to get back to that process again, because basically your liver's going through processes, all your organs are going through processes again, so you're probably better off to just break your fast and go at it again. Robert says, great video, very informative. How long does it take to reverse dopamine issues? For example, switching from a high-carb diet to high fat, will dopamine receptors become more sensitive with time? I'm sure it depends on the individual, but generally speaking, if you cut out carbs cold turkey, will the cravings go away eventually? And is there a hack for speeding up the process? I like to eat high fiber, high insoluble fiber, just because it does make the cravings go away a little bit more. It triggers that cholecystokinin response, CCK, to kind of tell your brain that you're full. So that does help a lot, cuts out those cravings. I would say in general, like if you're saying how long does it take to cut out a carb habit, you're probably going to find it's about 8 weeks to really kick that craving. Your taste buds are going to change in a matter of days, so you're not going to need that excitotoxin response anymore from your brain, but the actual physical craving that comes from carbs is probably going to take 8 weeks or so. Eric Haskell says, what about cravings when it concerns nutrient deficiency? Is there such a thing? I've looked and I haven't seen a lot of studies on this. There are a lot of people that are kind of old school mentalities that'll say, I need salt because I'm craving salt, or I need sugar because I'm craving sugar. Well, no, the hard part is our brains are smart. We have big prefrontal cortexes. We're interesting creatures. We're not just instinctual to the point like some animals are, right? So an animal is like, I'm hungry, I need to kill and eat. We aren't quite like that. We're hungry, and then we use our prefrontal cortex to start to make decisions as to why we want to justify this or that. So I think it all depends on how sort of implicit your brain is. So we have kind of that implicit brain, which just makes these decisions based on instinct. And most of us have such a developed prefrontal cortex that we're going to find any other reason to start to kind of manipulate our minds in a different way. So that's a tough one to answer. All right, this next video was really cool. This was a grocery trip with me, and it was my first real vlog style video. So camera crew went along with me. We went to the grocery store. It was kind of a day in the life sort of thing where I was like in a pinch, just needed to grab some simple things from the grocery store. Ultimately ended up getting kicked out of the grocery store for having some camera stuff there. It was interesting, and people really, really liked it. It wasn't the normal sort of authoritative, super educational video. It was more kind of on the whim, here's what I do kind of thing. But it's super well received, and it raised some interesting questions, but most of the comments were just people saying they liked that style of video. Colin McKenzie says, I've got a question. I started to learn about you as the intermittent fasting guy. However, I hear you talking about keto a lot. I clearly need to learn more about combining the two, since I'm guessing that's the approach you're using. What's the likelihood we'd see a video like that? Also, which do you prefer for faster weight loss? I think intermittent fasting gets you faster weight loss if you are aggressive with it. Keto gets you more sustainable weight loss. That's my honest opinion there. I have done a video on the benefits of intermittent fasting and keto together. In short, intermittent fasting, you're producing ketones. Ketosis, you're producing ketones just through different mechanisms. So they do work amazingly well together. I would combine them. You're also going to find intermittent fasting is easier when you combine it with keto. LaPointe0174 says, I'm glad you guys are okay. I like the grocery trips because I can put a face with the name. I do have one question about lion's mane. How often should I have it? I like it and it's really great, but I don't want to overdo it. I take 1 packet a day of the coffee with lion's mane. Lion's mane, you're good to go. You can take that as much as you want. Lion's mane is a specific mushroom, for those of you that don't know, that increases brain-derived neurotropic factor, but it also helps with what's called neuroplasticity. Helps the brain sort of stay in a positive way and retraining, develop new neural channels and neural pathways. You're good to have that, honestly, 3-4 times a day if you really want to. Little Voice asks, I heard the canning process of fish denatures the micronutrients and antioxidants. Is this true? It depends. You want to find fish that's either flash frozen when it's caught, or canned even on the boat, or canned shortly after it's being caught. So you can do some research on your favorite brands and see what the case is. You do lose some of the minerals, you always are, but you're also not going to always be able to eat fresh sardines. So, Mad Mike says, what sweetener do you suggest? Stevia tastes better than the monk fruit. Actually, you had a question there, so I don't know. I personally think monk fruit tastes a little bit better than stevia. It's a little less bitter. Stevia, if you can get true Reb A stevia in the actual liquid form, it's very high quality stuff. Monk fruit, the body sees as an herb, so it doesn't really process it as a sweetener. So I would honestly probably say monk fruit over stevia whenever possible, but you don't always find monk fruit readily available. Hoofing Outdoors says, one thing I don't really get is the whole probiotic thing. I keep hearing that probiotics are useless because they can't survive the GI tract, and by the time they get to where they need to go, they all died off. Can you clear this up? Do probiotics in yogurt, kefir, kimchi, and kombucha actually make it alive to your large intestine? The truth is, a vast majority of them don't, but it is better than nothing. Like eating cabbage, eating kimchi, eating sauerkraut, it does have an effect, and it does still have digestive enzyme properties. So yeah, and there's studies that show that exogenous probiotics coming in from a form that's not being built or mutated or even developed in your system still do have an effect on your immune system and stuff like that. So you're good, just don't live and die by it. Nicole says, sorry so many questions. Also, can you talk about keto and protein intake if you're bodybuilding and emphasis on muscle gain versus fat loss? People say I can't bodybuild on keto, and I used to have a typical 40-30-30 diet and got good muscle building results, but I hated the way carbs made me feel. I hear conflicting info on how much protein and fat to eat. I also fast 18/6. All right, Nicole, that's a good question. You absolutely 100% can build muscle on a keto diet because you're putting yourself in a very, very anabolic state simply because leucine oxidation is decreased while you're on keto. So keto basically produces, of course, the ketone bodies that block muscle breakdown. So as long as your calories are sufficient, you can definitely build some muscle. What I would recommend is toning down the intermittent fasting to maybe 2 or 3 days a week on the days where maybe you're doing some full body movements. This way you can stay lean and use your longer keto days where you're eating straight keto with no fasting to actually put on muscle. Little Voice says, are there any low carb and safe protein bars you suggest, please? There's 2. So I'm a huge fan of the Perfect Keto bars. Those are really good. And I'm also a fan of Susie's Good Fats bars. Those are really good. Andrew Pop says, sardines in oil versus water. Isn't it thought that the oil provides some barrier against BPAs leaching from the can? Simple solution there. Go for cans that don't contain BPAs. A lot of them don't these days, so you usually are pretty easy. It's pretty easy to find one. Ariana says, so I know you did a video on how much time to wait in between meals, and I thought maybe I could ask on here because I saw this one and realized what you just considered a quick, quote unquote, meal. Would the bone broth or MCT oil be considered a meal when I break my fast? If not, how long should I wait after I break my fast with either of those to actually eat heavy food? I don't think I would have to wait 5 to 6 hours up to MCT. Yeah, that's a good question. I go exactly where you're going there. When you break your fast, I've talked about in other videos, you're usually going to break your fast with something really small, and that's the one exception where the whole idea of breaking your fast with a small meal is just to sort of engage your gut and get things going again. And then like 30, 60, 90 minutes later, you can eat your larger meal. Usually 60 to 90 minutes is an opportune time. Butterfly9274. Hey Thomas, I take iron in the morning. Do you think that it could break a fast? Because I have to take it in the morning. Please answer. I'm not a doctor, but the first thing I want to tell you is make sure you check your sources and get like a second, a third, a fourth, a fifth, a sixth opinion, because 99.9% of people that are diagnosed with anemia aren't actually anemic. Okay, there's bioavailable iron and there's available iron. Ferric and ferrous state, all these things you have to factor in. So usually people are not having an iron deficiency. The long and the short of it is though, if you have to take the iron supplement, you're okay to take it in the morning. My random YouTube channel says, what does Loddon taste like? I'm looking for a dip or something to make a dip out of, and unfortunately allergic to avocado, so I wanted some kind of higher fat dip. It tastes like a super consolidated, concentrated sour cream with a little bit of a tangier texture. So it's like a cross between thick sour cream and Greek yogurt. Pavel Ignatov says, I'm a Bulgarian guy, and you mentioned Bulgarian yogurt. Can you please comment a bit more about yogurt, cheese, and keto? I keep dairy to a minimum. I don't eat a lot of it, but there are a few things. I do eat some cheese snacks from time to time. I'm not anti-dairy. I just try to keep it out as much as possible. I notice if I live and die by dairy, I end up with circles under my eyes. I end up with inflammation. My joints hurt. So when you mention Bulgarian yogurt, that's usually an easier thing on the system. 9 times out of 10, you're going to find a good organic Bulgarian yogurt, and it's just a higher quality. So go with like a kefir cheese. Go with a high-quality organic cottage cheese, something that's been cultured. Bazaar7777 says, is that baking chocolate the same as cocoa powder? No, baking chocolate is actual chocolate, 100% straight chocolate. So it's like the hard actual chocolate that has fat in it. Baking cocoa is the cocoa, it's just the powder. So totally different things. The chocolate has way more calories, but it's also something that you can have whenever you're just on the road or you just need a quick fix. So that's it for these videos for this week. Make sure you keep it locked in next week when I answer videos from this week. So the whole idea of this is to make sure that you understand this as a community. Engage, comment, ask questions. I'm gonna do the best that I can to answer them. As always, keep it locked in here with my channel. See you in the next video.